would now be housed. One where they would not have access to the liberal communication that they were using to facilitate this reign of terror upon the great citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. More so, we have seen recent acts of kidnapping and homicides being perpetrated against our citizenry that we have been able to trace back to this organized crime syndicate. And as your Commissioner of Police, I cannot in all good conscience stand before you at any given time knowing what I know and not take definitive action against it. Today marks the 18th of June, 1 month in the seat. I must say that I am grateful for the outpouring support that I have received from the public. And today would have been a day that I had planned, and I still plan to, commend and award officers who, during the past month since I've been in office, recovered over 30 firearms off the streets. And that award ceremony, I have not cancelled it, even though I didn't sleep last night, but it is my intention to commend these officers and award them today, and I'm inviting you, the members of the media, to join us after in that ceremony. These are hardworking officers. These are the frontline officers that I often speak about. And they took, and not only took firearms off the street, but they arrested persons and placed them before the court. And that is why I am proud of them to the point where I feel there's a need to commend them. I do not wish to labor this much longer, but I will now open the floor to questions. I see Mr. McBurney chomping at the bits. Go ahead, sir. Just know that I've been going on probably 28 hours without sleep, right?
Well, I guess the one of the first questions I noticed in the media release and what you said just now, although you briefed the National Security Council, this comes less than 12 hours after the Homeland Security Minister would have said there's no uptick or upsurge in crime. What do you say to that? And it comes just, 2 or 3 months after the last state of emergency ended as well. So, what are your thoughts on that? And also, was the Homeland Security Minister consulted? Did you all have any sort of, one-on-one conversations in terms of allocation of resources, etc., going forward?
All right, so that's a real mouthful. So I'll try to bite it one piece. Firstly, the Homeland Security Minister was absolutely correct when he said that there's no uptick in crime. The crime statistics actually are lower in comparison to last year and year before. So that's a no-brainer. With regards to conversations with the Homeland Security Minister about strategies going forward, strategies are sometimes better felt than spoken about. If I have a crime strategy, I would not want to come before you, the media, and advertise the crime strategy, because then it would come to naught. So there are strategies in play. And with regards to this state of emergency coming on the heels of another, this has nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do with any particular threat to a politician, any particular threat to any group of persons outside of what I mentioned here to you, that there are a group of criminals in our society, some of them behind bars and some of them on the outside, form themselves into an amalgamated unit of an organized crime syndicate and intent on wreaking havoc on the good citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I hope that answers your question.
Commissioner, good morning.
Ms. Paul, good morning to you.
Now, the press release from the TTPS indicated that there's no curfew in effect, but can you spell out the parameters under which the SoE is now going to take effect? What powers, what can citizens expect, and what powers does the police, law enforcement actually have again now? Additional powers, I should say.
The additional powers of the police, we, as per all state of emergencies, can now enter the premises of persons without a search warrant. And that is one of the key things that we must take into consideration, in particular with this state of emergency and the reason why it was asked for. Curfew. I have decided that that is not an issue with regards. I want the good citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to continue to enjoy their lifestyle without placing any undue sort of strain on them with regards to how they live, and we love to party and we love to socialize and all of that. So I would love to see Trinidad and Tobago continue. The persons who have to be concerned are the criminals, because this is what that particular SoE and the emergency powers geared to and aimed at targeting. So you, the good citizen, and all the good citizens that you know, Ms. Paul, have no reason to fear.
Commissioner, you mentioned just now that you all went to the prisons and would have moved the prisoners, etc., the ones who you think may be involved. The persons who they will be collaborating with on the outside, do you think that, have you all started rounding, have the police started rounding these people up, or do you think by announcing this, they've gotten a head start and they will now be able to go into hiding, etc.? So,
since 12:02 this morning when I received the proclamation, at 12:05 my men already started covert and overt operations throughout the country. So the part with me coming from the prisons was just a part of that. This is not an SoE of reaction. It is an SoE with proaction. So even whilst I was approaching the Prime Minister and the Attorney General to take action, I was hopeful and placed things in position to act immediately.
Mr. Guevara, just by chance, I know you said you made mention that certain persons were gang leaders were moved from the MSP in Aruca. Is it possible to get a number or even an average number of how many persons were moved this morning?
I will not be giving that information because I do not want to place any particular spotlight and give rise to any particular names being published that I do not want out into the public. We don't want to make these people famous, you know.
No, not necessarily.
No, not at all.
But if there's an average number of persons, even if you don't want to give a specific number, if it's more than the 12, yeah.
I will hold out from that. I will hold away from that question, ma'am. Just know that they are safely incarcerated in a place where communication is now limited.
Commissioner, good morning. Chancellor of CNC3 News. Is there any information that there are members of the National Security Service who are part and parcel of this plot?
That is a very interesting question. And if I was to answer that question and tell you no, I would be lying to you and the members of the public. Because how else would Ms. Martin and her team, almost on a weekly basis, be finding phones inside of the same cells? So there are persons who seem hell-bent on facilitating the communication of these persons with the outside. So by removing them from that environment and placing them in one where they are a lot more secure, I can feel rest assured that that communication link is broken.
No, we have a state of emergency in place now. You said the inmates on the inside will move to a secure location where they can't communicate with others. Why wasn't that enough to address the situation? Because
they have persons on the outside. Remember I said they form themselves into an organized syndicate. Persons on the outside and persons on the inside working together. This is a big money thing, you know. Kidnapping, home invasions, extortions, the infiltration of URP gangs and state contracts. These are the things that they are using to fund. And guess what they're buying with the money? More guns to come after you. And that is what we want to prevent. So I would urge Trinidad and Tobago to work alongside the TTPS in bringing this to some successful closure.
No, I couldn't help but notice on your arm there's a emblem that resembles the Punisher sign. Right? What if
I am not Punisher?
Well, what if anything is going to be done or in place to prevent or to mitigate the reports of or instances of abuse of power by the members of the
Let us not be presumptive and believe that that is the direction we are going. I want Trinidad and Tobago to feel safe. I don't want to presume that my officers will go there and abuse the citizens. And if any reports of that come to my attention, I will treat with it. We have processes and procedures in place. There's a DO called 14 of 2008. I almost know it verbatim. Disciplinary processes and procedures. So if you, as a member of the TTPS, should breach 14 of 2008 or any of the departmental orders or other legislation that govern us, policies, procedures, we have processes to deal with that. So fear not, good citizens of Trinidad and Tobago.
Now, will the TTPS be getting support from the Defense Force, and will we be getting increased manpower from the Defense Force during this? And also, will the Defense Force have powers of arrest, which is something that normally comes up during a state of emergency?
Yes, the Defense Force officers will have powers of arrest, similar to police officers during the emergency powers regulations. And yes, the CDS and I have spoken. He was present at the National Security Council meeting yesterday, and he has pledged full support for our efforts.
Are you able at this time to identify some of the specific targets that these criminals were aiming after?
So by giving rise to that information, I would then be placing that information into the public, which I don't want it to be. So that is one of the questions that I won't answer.
Now, this intelligence that you would have gathered about this plot, it was gathered during which period? Or how long ago? Was it just yesterday alone, or over a period of time?
So over a period of a couple months, bits and pieces of intelligence data came to bear. However, yesterday afternoon, a particular intelligence report came to my attention that had to be brought immediately before the National Security Council. So even though there were existing reports within the sphere of the intelligence data, yesterday's report was as they say, the proverbial straw that breaks the camel back. Yes, that's the one.
Now, usually, and on Monday you was on CNC3 News Morning Brew, and you spoke of...
from Guardian Media, yeah.
You spoke of post-SoE, there seems to be a rise in criminal activity.
I never said
to some level of normalcy, criminal normalcy.
Right, yes.
Right? What, if anything, can or will be done to ensure that this plot that has happened now, after the SoE, that there won't be a continuation?
What, if anything, would be there to what?
To ensure that after the SoE, after this thing has ended, that we won't see a return to this plot, a return to members of the national security apparatus bringing in cell phones into these cells, and we're going back, as we like to say in Trinidad, spinning top in mud.
I am hopeful that the persons and the powers that be that have control over the individual organizations can treat with their individual problems, just as the TTPS continues to treat with its own problems, right? And for looking at the holistic view of it, those who are unable to treat with their individual problems, the TTPS will help them. And you know what we will do, right? Nice.
Make it tell me still.
They will face the court. Just as I said, the parents who cannot control their children, we will do what? Confine them. If they can't control the people who work under them, we'll confine them for them too. And the mere fact that I went to that prison this morning, it had plenty room. plenty room. I saw cells there with 8 and 10 double-deckers empty. So, that room.
Based on the intelligence, is there any connection between this, I want to use the word plot, and the last jailbreak that we had some years ago?
No, there is no information or intelligence to say that there is any link between the two.
And the last SoE, again, was called because of gang violence. Are you satisfied that that was properly dealt with? And are you confident that this state of emergency would properly deal with the scourge of gang violence?
All right, so let me be lucidly clear. The last SoE, as you said, was held to deal with gang violence. This particular SoE is being held to deal with a particular threat, even though it involves persons who have formed themselves into an organized crime syndicate, or I don't want to use the word gang, because it's bigger than a gang when you look at different entities coming together. I do not wish to say that it have any, because it's something totally different. This is a particular threat that I had to approach the National Security Council with, so I want to make that absolutely clear. This has nothing to do with gang violence. Yeah, I see your colleague trying to tell you, hey, pass the mic now, man. You're hogging the mic, boy. What's going on?
Just one question before passing mic.
Hold on. You all not working for the same media house?
You mentioned syndicate. Apart from the gangsters are part of the syndicate, could you identify some of the other players without obviously calling names?
So, how can I identify someone without calling them?
Individuals.
You're asking me to name
The other aspects of the syndicate. We know it'll be gangsters. Who else are part of the syndicate?
Well, you mentioned it yourself. There are persons within even law enforcement whose names may come up. There are persons who, and I don't like to use this word gang, we tend to give it a little rise to, gang. So the criminals outside there who form themselves into these little units and pretending to be bad boys out there, they have a lot of them and they like to give themselves all kind of pretty names, right? They even accused at one point in time, they said the TTPS was a gang, but nah, that is not the truth. We are here. Well, you see, I ain't pointing any fingers, right? That is you, eh?
No, just saying, as the PCA who said the biggest gang in the country was the TTPS.
All right. Well, I can say we are a group of committed professionals who continue to carry out our functions as it relates to the public.
Any businessmen or politicians part of the syndicate?
No, you're looking for me to call names. Next question.
Mr. Commissioner, you've been very specific in your wording, and you've said that the SoE is necessary to combat a particular threat.
Particular threat.
Very well. The Constitution allows after the declaration 15 days. It may be without going to the House. So it may be preemptive to ask, but I still have to ask, is it that you have a time frame in mind to treat with this threat? As you mentioned, it's a particular threat that you're dealing with. And do you expect to be done within the 15 days, or you may have to go back?
So this is a very fluid situation. And as I mentioned before, at 12 last night is when I collected this document, and I've been up since then. So it rules. I was in the prison this morning. I was in other places. So it is fluid. I cannot give rise to a particular sunset date on this. But I can tell you, the decision to put a sunset on this does not rest with the TTPS or the Commissioner of Police. It rests elsewhere. And I know I would be saying, I like to say that is somebody else's responsibility, but yeah, it's really somebody else's responsibility, right?
Commissioner, you've spoken about the fact that this organized syndicate is big business for them. Can you say whether or not the kidnapping of Sati Karim is in any way connected to this or is part of this?
I would want to be very cautious and not give rise to pointing any particular fingers, especially since the young lady is still in the hands of kidnappers. So let us stay away from that aspect. But you will be updated accordingly.
And well, just touching on that quickly, we saw on social media a buzz earlier this week with reports that there was a proof of life video, etc., that was sent to the family. I'm not sure if either you or probably Ms. Martin and DCPI and I able to give an update on that particular investigation.
So I was hoping to keep this press briefing about the SoE and not stray into other realms. So let's try to rein in the questions and stick with what I'm sure the public want to hear about. Whether or not they could go out tonight and have that cold beer on the avenue, whether or not they could go and have the beach lime, whether or not the little house lime still on over the weekend. So let me stick with that one. I would not want to go down the realm of that. We could treat with that after.
Commissioner, lastly, there's a copy of a proclamation circulating online. Can you see whether or not that is in fact the proclamation that was issued?
I have not seen that copy of the proclamation that you are speaking about circulating online. I can say the proclamation I was given, I have it in my hand. I thought I heard you say last question. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
See, nice.
And Commissioner, you are quite right to say that she did indicate that that was the last question for members of the media. Again, we thank the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Guevara, Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Williams, Deputy Commissioner of Police, Ma'am George, Deputy Commissioner of Police, Ma'am Martin, and of course, members of the media for taking this information to the national public. We thank you. Remember, if you see something, say something. Dial 999-555-800 This ends our press brief for today. Have a safe and wonderful weekend. Thank you.
So I hope you all will take my invitation and join me to see my hard-working officers be commended for taking guns off the street. He take up all of the time, eh?
Exactly.
What time is this?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So what we're looking at is the tail end of a live press conference with Police Commissioner Alistair Guevara. The big headline, Trinidad and Tobago is once again under a state of emergency. You will remember we were under a state of emergency in late December last year. That took us to just about April this year, and here we are back again. How we got here, just as confusing as the last time. It started with a police media release in the early hours of this morning, just after 6 o'clock. Then about an hour later came the formal declaration from the president herself, and now we're finally hearing from the police themselves. The reason there is a coordinated threat, they said, targeting officials, not necessarily of the government or members of the government, but it is an attack on the general public. So police intelligence now saying, according to the police commissioner, it's coming from inside the prison system. He's talking about smuggled phones and conversations that are happening in there, and what he called direct syndicate, a crime syndicate directing criminal activity from behind bars. And of course, the commissioner said he took that information to the National Security Council late last night. He would have spoken to the Prime Minister and other senior officials, and he said that with what he described as a heavy heart, he recommended that the president declare a state of emergency. And of course, we know now that the president acted on that recommendation early this morning. Of course, the police commissioner again describing this as a crime syndicate, a group of gangs coming together from inside and even outside the prison system with the intent to, as he said, destabilize the country. He reiterated that this is not necessarily a threat in response. Sorry, this is not in response to a threat against any one individual or politician. He said the conversations are ongoing with the Minister of Homeland Security, and that law enforcement response would be better felt than spoken about. That's in response to, of course, the multiple questions about a crime plan that the Minister of Homeland Security would have been asked about yesterday at post-cap. He said just about after 12:05 this morning, covert and overt operations were already underway. Raids had begun, and what he described as gang leaders from within the prison system had been extracted from where they were and moved to new facilities, although the state of emergency grants that expanded police powers. We'll remember we've been through quite a few of these states of emergencies at this point. That includes the ability to enter the premises without a warrant. But just like the last one back in December last year, there's been no curfew imposed. That, like I said, similar to last year, he said he wanted the citizens to feel comfortable to go about their business. So this is where we're looking at right now. So what else we also know, he's not saying, as opposed to in December, who the person was. If you remember that situation, the government would have come out and given a name, but there's no name this time. But he said, of course, the public should not be worried about going about your business. What we understand now is that there is also no sunset date. Now, you understand the Constitution requires that in a state of emergency, you have just about 2 weeks, give or take, to go to the Parliament to extend the state of emergency for 3 months. Again, after that 3 months, you go to the Parliament again to extend for another 3. And that by law, by the Constitution, you cannot have a state of emergency in this country for more than 6 months at a time. The last one would have lasted just 3 months. And of course, you remember the election would have been called. Dr. Rowley would have stepped down, leaving Stuart Young to take over at that point. We are now under new government, new state of emergency. If you were looking, the tone of the press conference was serious, but it was a fluid. The police commissioner was laughing, talking with reporters. He was relatively calm, but he did say that it was a serious situation. And he, again, just reiterate this, he did want the public to go about its business as usual, saying that he does believe that there should be no inconvenience to the public. However, he did say that the inconvenience would be on the criminals themselves, because they're the ones that he is going after. This is very similar rhetoric to the December state of emergency. I understand we have former police commissioner, former National Security Minister Gary Griffith on the line. Mr. Griffith, how are you doing this morning, and what do you make of all of this?
Well, good morning. Again, it is the same old. It's all based on opinion. My personal view, will continue to say that a state of emergency should not be used as a crime-fighting tool. Politicians on both sides of the fence, both red and yellow, that is what they have decided to do. That is their right. My point being is that every single thing that the present commissioner has just stated could be done without a state of emergency. It involves having the strategic ability, tactics, high visibility, a deterrent, a rapid response. The 5,000 members of the Defense Force who have been confined in camp waiting for another war since 1990, they can all be out there as an aid to civil power, increase operations, everything that could be done without the proclamation by the president. The only difference is that you can kick down the doors and break into homes without a warrant, and you can arrest persons indefinitely. That is the only difference of a state of emergency. So why call it? If it is that the commissioner believes that he does not have the capability and he needs that type of oomph extra, so be it. But my point being, my biggest concern about this whole thing, the fiasco, is that why would you send a media release to the public and the criminals to make a recommendation for SoE without the government approving it? The whole thing is messy. Notice he never said he spoke to, as a commissioner of police, the first person you speak to in a situation like this is your line minister. The Minister of Homeland
He did say he went to the National Security Council early this morning, but I do agree with you there that the handling of it is just as messy, as I would have said in my opening, just as messy as in December, where we would have had the leak of the proclamation before everything else, and then we worked backwards from there. Here we have the police sending out a release saying that they recommended a state of emergency. After that, we had that. So I think messy all around. I understand the need for people to move quickly, but I also understand the need for protocol and calm in a situation like this, because what you would have had is breaking news situations and people, is this real? Is this fake news in this era? I think the ball was dropped there a little bit. What I do want to ask you, though, is the National Homeland Security Minister would have just returned from Jamaica. We know that in that meeting he had several conversations with their Minister of National Security. They would have had several what they called mini states of emergency or limited states of emergency in particular areas. Do you think we are starting to resemble that sort of Jamaican model of handling crime through whether partial or national states of emergency?
I definitely would have recommended that. It is known as the Zone of Special Operations, ZOSO, where in Jamaica there are specific areas in the country that they pinpoint as being so volatile, with criminal elements having some degree of control, that it allows the type of powers to go into homes without a warrant, to arrest persons indefinitely, and they call it the Zone of Special Operations. That is something that can very well be looked at. But again, going back to that specific area, if we had the same type of laws as Jamaica, then exactly what is the concern here could have been done in the prisons. Going back, let me just quickly add, I listened to the words by the commissioner, unless I missed it. He said he went and met with the Prime Minister and the Attorney General. That's what he said. He went after the fact and said he then met with the National Security Council. So that is a thing by itself. But going back to, if it is that there's a specific clear and present danger in a specific area, which is the prison, it means that is where you're supposed to deal with the situation. You don't call a state of emergency because of a clear and present danger in an isolated area. I had the same situation as the Commissioner of Police. What we did, we took those individuals, put them in a specific wing, In that way, what I did is I directed 2 police officers, then 2 prison officers, then 2 soldiers. So for anything to pass, if a pack of nuts has to go through, it has to go through 3 different lines. It ensured that phones weren't getting through and so forth. So that is how the problem is dealt with. But to call a national state of emergency because of isolated situation in the prison, and let me quickly add, that is why I drafted the Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Justice was drafted specifically to deal with the problems in the prison.
Let's touch on what he would have said too in terms of this crime syndicate, which he says is not just people in the prison but outside of the prison. He talks about the smuggling of communications within the prison as well. So what do you make of that? Is there, you on the ground, you speak to people, that idea of a syndicate of criminal gangs coming together inside and out of the prison, what do you make of that announcement?
It is not an understatement. It is ridiculous. There was a situation where there was a major criminal element in the Port of Spain prison, and 3 times in 24 hours we seized a phone from that individual. As soon as we seized the phone, he got another one because of prison officers on the take. We had reports of attorneys meeting with these individuals, getting information and passing it back out onto the street. So they were acting as a conduit, which basically is aided and abetted and being part of a gang. That is the problem we had to take. So it is indeed a difficult situation. But that is why I drafted the Ministry of Justice, not just to deal with recidivism, not just to deal with problems in the remand, but to deal with the situation where you've taken these persons, you're arresting them, and then they're still running their enterprise. But the Minister of Justice has not said a word. You have transferred the prison system under practically the Minister of Homeland Security. So everything that was done to draft the Ministry of Justice, it has fallen flat. And again, I want to go back. If there's an isolated situation, similar to Jamaica, a zone of special operation, that is where the problem lies. And if you deal with the problem in the prison, then you do not need to call a state of emergency.
Mr. Commissioner, let's talk about this aspect of you in a unique position to understand the politics of all of this. You would have seen the opposition, now government, really kicking up against how the last state of emergency was handled. And as short as our memories are in this country, we remember December. We remember that. How do they navigate this conversation now where they find themselves in the exact same position, doing the exact same thing that they would have railed against just about 6 or 7 months ago?
Kamala Prasad-Bissessar is brilliant. She's probably one of the most brilliant politicians. That is what caused this whole mess. I could put my hand on block. This was the government making the decision to call a state of emergency. But instead, what they did is then say, Commissioner, you go and make the recommendation, so it falls on you. And he was so excited about it, he runs to do a media release to recommend it. You can't make a recommendation for SoE before it is proclaimed by the president. So he rushed in there in his excitement to show to the politicians, hey, listen, I'm listening to you. But this, to me, it seems that something that was already predetermined by the politicians. And what she has done now is say, hey, she has done a shaggy. It wasn't me. I didn't call for the SoE. It's Mr. Commissioner who made it. And then have you ever heard a state of emergency with the police commissioner doing a press conference before the government? This has been
the last one.
This has been crafted so well to throw everything on the burden of the responsibility and the reason for it on the police. So the police now take the blame. So Kamala now backs off and says, hey, it wasn't me. I'm just adhering to the instructions of the police. Just take note that in 2011, the rationale for the state of emergency, it is almost a template of the letter that was done in the media release. There's a clear and present danger. There's a concern of threats to persons who hold high office, and because of that, we have to take no chances. And that's the same thing that Mervyn Richardson and Stephen Williams did. The same letter, they just drafted it and changed the year, and then say that the police are the ones who have made the recommendation. So that's going to be the decision by the government. The government's get out of jail free card in this matter is that, hey, it wasn't me. I've done a shaggy. It was the police who made the recommendation.
All right, Mr. Griffith, thanks very much. We appreciate your time. And, well, as usual, we're going to be checking in with you throughout the day and the days to come as we do this, as we keep an eye on Trinidad and Tobago in its second state of emergency for 2025. All right, so ladies and gentlemen.
I just hope that we can have a degree of professionalism in the future. Nothing bothers me about when it comes to punctuality. You call an 8:30 press conference at 9:15. Sometimes it's the little things that show the difference between an amateur and a professional.
Mr. Griffin, thank you very much. I will say that the lateness was able to help me get here on time. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, we have been watching a press conference. We're going to bring that information back to you. We're going to try to play back a little bit of it later on in the day. Of course, we're going to stay here just for a little while longer. Let's explain where we are. If you're just joining us, Trinidad and Tobago once again under a state of emergency. We would have woken up to a press release from the police this morning at just about 6 o'clock, and about an hour later, after lots of frantic calls, that's when we got that formal proclamation from the president. And we just would have heard from the police commissioner saying that there was a coordinated threat, a syndicate of criminals from within and out of the prison system that would have triggered this response. The police commissioner saying he would have gone to the National Security Council led by the Prime Minister with the Attorney General and recommended the state of emergency by 12 o'clock this morning. He would have said that there was overt and covert operations taking place. Okay, we have with us our national security analyst, Dr. Shane Mohammed. Our political analyst, Dr. Shane Mohammed. He's on the line. How are you doing this? You stay ready for moments like this. We appreciate that.
No. Good morning, Keisha. You'll keep me ready for things like this.
So let's talk about where we are. We would have had the same conversation on December, I want to say 30th, 2024, and here we are again on July 18th, 2025. What do you make of this whole situation?
Well, I think we have to take into consideration that the Commissioner of Police and the Police Service has a job to do, and the life and the security of all of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago is one of the top priorities of this government. And this is something that they campaign upon, and it led to them winning the general election. Now, I don't agree that there's a connection between the campaign promise and the state of emergency, but what I'm saying is, after listening to the Commissioner of Police, if there is a threat to our national security, and if there's a syndicate, a coordinated syndicate, as he rightfully said, and it warrants the Commissioner of Police to go to the National Security Council, who then goes to the President and asks for a state of emergency in order to quell what is heightened alarm by the police service. I think the persons who are best charged with the responsibility of determining that is the Commissioner of Police and the National Security Council.
Absolutely. We're not taking that away from them. At this point, in terms of visibility, how soon do you expect to see your Minister of Homeland Security, your Minister of Defense, your Attorney General, one of the government officials on the TV screens briefing the nation? Or do they need
I don't expect, no. And I think that's the next thing. We've heard the operations of what is to come with regard to the state of emergency comes within the remit of the police commissioner. That's the authority, and that's the person who will be looking forward with regard to guidance and information as to what, when, how, why, and that sort of thing. And therefore, I don't think that we need to necessarily hear from a politician at this stage with regard to so the question is, what information would we need from Attorney General, Homeland Security Minister, or Defense Minister that we already don't have from the Commissioner of Police?
Well, parameters for one. One of the things that he raised is that there was no time limit. He doesn't have a sunset. By the Constitution, we need to go to the Parliament within 2 weeks to extend this to 3 months if he needs that. Those are some of the questions that I would have for the Attorney General.
Well, that's the thing, though. Let's give. I mean, this only happened at 7 o'clock this morning. It is now 9:58 a.m. and we are, as you rightfully say, we have 2 weeks. If this can be done and these operations can be completed in 2 weeks' time, then we don't need to go to Parliament. I don't expect, though, that the government is going to be silent for an extended period of time, because that would be irresponsible of them. However, taking into consideration that the Attorney General is someone who, by his disposition alone, one who does not speak unless necessary, then when the time comes for everyone to speak on the same page, on the same line, in a coordinated context, then I think we will hear from them. But between now and then, I don't think there's a need to hear from anybody unless it is important for us to get a government directive. This is the remit of the police and the remit of the Commissioner of Police. And I say we wait on the Commissioner of Police to update us next. Let the operations of the police service and the operations of the state of emergency take its course. Let the police do their job. Let the law enforcement apparatus do its job, and let them operationalize what it needs to be done.
It's interesting. We'll see if that works. But this is a government that is very front-facing. They also are very camera-ready. So we'll see what they decide. We did hear earlier.
I think in this instance, though, Keisha, I think I would advise that, and this is sometimes being too front-faced, end up with foot-and-mouth syndrome. Right. And I think in this scenario, and I think we've seen certain individuals within the government structure have had enough, camera lights. Let the police do its job, let the government do its job, and when the time is right, I expect either one of the ministers in the national security framework to address us accordingly.
Well, I also noticed that the no curfew, so it just like from December to about April, there are so many people who ask, we were in a state of emergency, and I guess maybe that works to their advantage as well, where life can go on. You heard the police commissioner saying that he did want everybody to go about their business as usual. So I'll give you the last word before we wrap this up.
I can say this, right? What I think we can understand is that we can operate under a state of emergency with regard to the powers that they are afforded under a state of emergency. Specifically, the Commissioner of Police spoke about the ability to enter and to arrest and without needing a warrant. And I think, given the operations that they need to execute, listening to what the Commissioner has said thus far, we can have a life in Trinidad and Tobago where we are under the conditions of a state of emergency, but it allows the coordinated national security apparatus, including the Defense Force, to do its job, protect us while we could live a safe, a regular life. You see, I think what we need to take into consideration is sometimes we don't pay attention to the little details we tend to miss. That need for the work and the operations of the Defense Force, I think, is very critical. Since there's a syndicated coordination of elements in and out of the prison service. And the Commissioner did speak specifically, withholding as well, certain things that I think was important to withhold. Let the intelligence speak for itself and let the operations take its course.
You're right. So as I wrap it up, let's recap. So what he did not do, which was different from the last time. Stay on the line, Shane. One of the things that he did differently this time is did not name the gang members who have been moved. He did say that they were moved and stressed that they were in a situation where they cannot communicate, and that was taken away from them. His exact words, without the liberal communication to perpetuate a reign of terror, or to perpetrate a reign of terror. That was the word that he used. And he says, ironically, there was no uptick in crime. The crime is actually down from last year, likely knock-on effect from the last state of emergency. He did say that on Monday when he was on the Morning Brew. He said that a little uptick in crime is expected after a state of emergency as things get back to normal, but today he's saying there's no major uptick in crime. And one of the things that he said, and I guess this is what we can end on, Shane, I'll give you the last word. He said, "Fear not, good citizens of Trinidad and Tobago." And that is how the police commissioner would have ended his press briefing a short while ago. Shane, one last word. Anything of that stuck out to you?
Yes, they have been moved to a secure area and where their communication is limited. And I support that 100%. I think the confidentiality that the commissioners spoke with, I think the limited information that he has provided us with is enough. And I have confidence in his ability to execute what he needs to execute. I don't think a commissioner of police is looking for political stock 1 month into his office by having an unnecessary state of emergency. And I don't think he has the time to waste, the government has time to waste to become so quickly unpopular for something and is as inconvenient as a state of emergency. And I strongly believe that nobody has time to not sleep for 28 hours and tell us that they did not sleep for 28 hours if there isn't a serious threat to our security and our movement as a people. So again, I say let the government do its job as the government and let the security apparatus do its job in operationalizing its efforts to protect us.
Shane Mohammed, thank you very much. And that is where we're going to take a pause. We're going to keep an eye on this and any other developments. We're going to give us some time. We are going to reach out for reactions to get some more government responses. I appreciate Shane's thought about the government not having to speak, but we are going to reach out and ensure that we get that to you. If there is any briefing, you stay with us on our social media, on TV, wherever it is, we will bring that to you. But for now, we're going to take, we're going to end this special live breaking news coverage of the declaration of yet another state of emergency, and we'll be right back here at 12 o'clock for our midday news. Thanks for joining us.
Make sure you have yourself a great investment week by viewing The Boss Report every Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. during CNC3's The Morning Brew. You'll get sound financial